Hello, welcome to Shad Life. Well, now it's time to do the truing part of the wheel build. So I'm going to show you my truing stand really quick here. This is a Park truing stand. It's one of their professional ones from a long time ago. This was the one that was at Twin City BMX in the 90s. Pretty wild. Still a great tool. So what you do is you put the wheel in what the forks, as you want to call them, but it's really important that you get them in there and get it centered and get it in there correctly, because if this isn't in there correctly, then everything going on down here isn't going to be right. It's really easy to get this like crooked or something like that, so make sure it's in there all the way and in there correctly, and then you tighten it down, and so the hub is in there solid. And now we can start building. And so what you have here is this little kind of groove, I'd like to call it, right? And so this can go wide or narrow, and it can also go further away or close. And so the idea is you want to get this tolerance really tight over time when you're tightening the wheel. Right now it's super loose, so of course it's not going to be very accurate. You can see how kind of wobbly it is. But there's a thing, and I have this tension chart here, where basically if you tension the spokes equally throughout the wheel, your rim should just naturally fall almost perfectly true. So you don't need to focus so much on trying to do this part with a new rim or a new build. You really want to focus on getting all your spokes equally tensioned. And then when they're all equally tensioned, this is going to be really close, and you can fine tune it here. So that's going to be our first step, is we're going to equally tension these spokes. And I have my GoPro at this angle. Hopefully that'll help get the correct angle and help me be able to explain how to do this. So according to this chart, the ideal tension of the spokes needs to be right around 23, 24 using this tool. And there's my little guide on there. We don't start with this tool, but basically how this tool works is you just slip it onto the spoke and get the spoke in there and release it, and as you can see, it's like not even reading on the scale because this spoke's super loose. So that's how we're going to check the tension. But before I get to that point, what I generally do is try to get all the spokes relatively equal by hand. This is just something that I personally like to do, because I feel like it just makes the whole process easier as I want to go through and tension the wheel with the tools. And there does get to be a point where these spoke nipples don't want to turn very much, but I'll just use this little nipple driver to do it. And so I'm just gonna equally get these spoke nipples. I usually go by the threads remaining on the spoke. It's kind of a rough way to go about it, but it usually works because those threads are usually fairly consistent, especially on higher quality spokes like these DT Swiss spokes that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and get this part set, and then I'll show you kind of my next step. But I want to kind of get everything equal here and a good starting point, and make sure this rim isn't like way off alignment. Now this isn't terrible, but it's definitely not where I like to be. I also have to, right now the rim is kind of centered with the flanges, and it actually needs to be dished a little bit to the disc side. So what I want to do at this point is I just want to find my reference point, which is going to be the valve hole, and I want to just tighten these a few turns, about a full turn, all on the left side, and just kind of get the wheel to start getting more dished and centered within the little grooves here rather than centered on the hub, because if you saw my other video, I talked about how when you have a disc hub, especially old school like this, 100mm width, you have to dish the wheel more than you do with boost spacing. One thing to kind of watch out for is so now it's moving the whole wheel over, but it's still pretty out of true. But that's just going to correct itself naturally as I go through and start tensioning these spokes. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of start that process. Oh, I was trying to figure out where the noise was coming from. It's like, yeah, well, that's a little deceiving. The little pull chain from the light bulb was running on the rim. I'm like, where's all that noise coming from? All right, so I'm going to do a few minor corrections here, and then I'm just going to start tensioning the wheel and then checking it with this tool as I go through. Okay, I want to show you what I'm looking at here, right, from this angle. And there's a reason I have that white piece of paper back there. I use that to make it easier for me to see, at least from the angle I'm standing at. I think that's what this white piece is for, but I'm never at that angle. So I am pretty close. You can see how it's pretty close. And wheels are going to look way worse in the truing stand than they are in real life. Like, when you consider how big this wheel is, that is a very minor hop in there, but it's really close. So now I can just start tensioning the spokes and then start checking it with the tool and making sure that all of this will balance out naturally. So what I'm doing now is I'm going through with this tool to each spoke, and right now I'm trying to get them all at right around 5. And by doing this, I can find ones that are looser than they need to be, and this particular one is. So I go onto it and I tighten it a little bit. Tighten it a little bit, and then check again and see if I can get it to balance out at 5. Yep. And then just keep doing that through all these spokes, because what I'll find is I'll find some spokes like this one is registering at like a 2. So it's like, well, obviously I need to tighten that one quite a bit more, right? And get it to be around a 5. And that's just the starting point. We're going to go much higher numbers than that. So I went maybe just a little past, so I'll back it off just a tiny bit, just so the wheel doesn't get too out of balance. And then we'll go to the next one. So this is just kind of the long, painstaking process of trying to get the spokes all equal. So there we go. And the more equal, measure this one, the more equal you can get them at this point, the easier it is to just go through and start tensioning the whole wheel. Okay, I have them all about 5 on this scale. They're still pretty loose. So now what I'm going to do is start at my valve hole right here, and I'm just going to go a 1/4 of a turn around the entire wheel. So make sure you're being very precise, 1/4 of a turn. And these should all feel about the same now, because I did that tensioning all the way around. And so 1/4 of a turn, 1/4 of a turn. And the idea here is the most important part of truing up a wheel or whatever, or doing this, tightening and truing, is to get equal spoke tension. Because if you ever hear people that are riding and their spokes break all the time, that's almost always because, it's usually because it was a manufactured wheel off of a complete bike or something like that, and there's tension on part of the wheel and loose area on the other. And so instead of all the spokes taking an equal amount of the abuse of riding, some spokes are taking on more of that abuse than others, and they tend to break. That is almost always the number one reason spokes will break in wheels, is because it's not equally tensioned. So that is why making sure they're equally tensioned is the most part of this process. A lot of people get hyper focused on making sure it's straight, and then in order to do that, they'll see that the wheel's going this way or the rim's going this way, and then they'll crank tight the spoke on the opposite side. Well, that's not how you want to do it. I'll get over how to fine tune this near the end once I get everything much more tension. So now that I went through one complete rotation, I'm going to just check my tension and see how much that changed, because we were starting at 5. Now it's up near 8. And, you know, I can go through here and check them and just make sure they're all relatively equal, right? And so I'm going to go ahead and do that and make little corrections if I need to. And then I'm going to go tension it. And I'm just going to keep doing this process. And as I do it, this rim is going to get pretty fine-tuned in here, and I'll only need to do minor corrections. So this is where we're at. It's pretty good. It's a tiny little bit of a hop in there, and it moves left and right. But I mean, this is super close. Okay, so I have this tool. This is the dish tool. And this little gauge here by my thumb is used to line up. And you want to line it up and look at where it mounts to your frame. Not where your bolts are or anything like that, but right where this will slide into the dropouts on the hub. And you want to measure to see if it's lined up there. Then you want to flip the wheel and do the same measurement. And then you can tell if the wheel is properly dished. So what this is showing me is it's really close, but I have to just go slightly that direction with the wheel to get it completely centered. And the reason you want to do this is you want your wheel to be centered in your frame. Once you mount this in your frame or your fork, if your dish isn't right, your tire is going to be to the left or the right. It's not going to line up directly centered on your fork. So to correct the dish, if it's one way or the other, you need to tighten only the spokes on the opposite side to pull the rim to that direction, and make those corrections. And then, so I already made that correction, and then I want to go and check my tension, and I'm getting up there. And just keep working this wheel, and kind of watching what's going on here. It's really close. Let me show you this right now. So this is super dialed. You can get really over picky about this, but in the reality of everything, that's not even noticeable. So where this hop is, I just do a small adjustment with the tool to get it to rub only where the hop is, but not where the hop isn't, right? And so where I hear that hop, where I hear that rubbing, that's where I start just doing a quarter turn on each spoke nipple while that is rubbing, and that'll take the hop out. And that's what you do, is these small fine-tune adjustments to get everything equalized here. And as soon as I stop hearing that rim sliding on the metal there, I can stop right there. So now it's a little bit less, so wasn't quite enough, so we just go and do that again. and get that hop completely out. Now it is an insignificant amount, except for that. That right there is where the rim seam is. A lot of times you're just never going to be able to work that out, but it's such a small amount. I mean, we're probably talking less than a millimeter of movement there, and that's close enough. And then here, from the side to side motion, we can start to correct that a little bit, but that's very subtle too. Like a little bit of rub there, and then it moves away. And as a matter of fact, I want to correct it moving away rather than what's rubbing there. So we're going to tighten a little bit on this side, but then what I do is I loosen a little bit on the other side and then tighten a little bit to pull this, but I also loosen the spoke on the opposite side. And the reason why I tighten this side and loosen the other side is if I only tighten the one side, I'm going to pull the rim up and create a hop again. And what I want to do is get everything equalized. So we'll check that again. So this is where it's going away. So we're going to go ahead and tighten, loosen. Only quarter turns here. Don't ever go more than a quarter turn. Wow, now it's getting really close. For tensioning up the wheel, I start at the valve hole and I just do a quarter turn of each spoke and just go around the wheel. Some might feel tighter than others, but because I've checked the tension, that's probably mostly just the way the nipple is behaving on the threads or whatever it is. So I just, push through it and keep going. And this wheel is very close to done. And I'll go all the way around until I get to that valve stem hole again, and then I'll check my spoke tension with the tool. So now I'm checking my spoke tension and it's right around 22. So that's getting really close. I probably only need to go around one more time and I should be good. Okay, this wheel is ready to go. It is fully tensioned. It is rocking. So I am take it out of the stand. Have it. That wheel is finished. It is dialed. Perfect. Super tight spokes, like really tight. So there you have it. This is done. It'll go back on the bike, and I'm super stoked to now have matching black wheels on this bike. Appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.